Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Lore Lodge. I feel oddly prepared and well rested today.
Isn't
How
it
about you?
shocking? Isn't it shocking once we give ourselves half of a week off, how
Right,
much
exactly.
better we feel?
I'll be working until 2 a.m. tonight. And today we are joined by a guest who I've been trying to get on the show for a little while. We had to
Yes.
work around some stuff, but this is Brendan Brown, and he has been investigating the Tom Messick case in more depth than just about anybody I've seen. I don't think I've seen anybody spend as much time on it as you have. Makes our amount of time on it look absolutely minuscule. So I'm very excited. Brendan, do you want to tell us, tell the audience who you are and what got you started on looking at this case?
Well, it was interesting. My name is Brendan Brown, and I founded what is the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective, and it started out as an investigative group, kind of like NIDS did with Skinwalker Ranch when they first did that stuff. Is I wanted to do some independent studying on some strange stuff, i.e., high strangeness, spirits and ghosts, UFOs. Obviously, Bigfoot got in there a lot. Bigfoot got in there a little too much, actually, for my own liking. and seeing that once we had everything up and running, seeing that I only live a couple hours from Warren County, right, where this case actually took place. And like you guys, I got roped into the whole Politis missing 411 thing with the Hunters film. I think the Hunters film the cinematography was excellent, right? It was really done well with how they shot it, but the storyline left a little bit desired, right? It was a little too much creepypasta for me.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah, and so I spoke to a couple of my friends in the group, and I said, let's go up and take a look at this. And that's how we started, and one thing led to another, and we ended up spending close to 8 weeks up there, on and off, and I still got some more stuff to do, investigating this case. So that's how we got into it.
Yeah, for reference, for those who are, our usual viewers, I think we spent 2 days, like one day basically getting up there and getting our bearings, then a day out on the town interviewing people.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks of documentary research.
And then an uncertain amount of time in the Days Inn in Albany, New York.
Way too much time in the Days Inn in Albany, New York. But yeah, so to give you guys an idea, our video on it took about a week and a half,
roughly,
of research. Brendan's been in the area for 8. So
yeah, and we still have a lot more to do, right? Originally this film was supposed to be out last November, to mark the 8th year anniversary of Tom going missing, but it's just not done, and I don't want to rush it because it's really what we have so far, and I've shown you some of the clips, and we may show some of them tonight. I really want to do the justice for the family on this one, because I think if you ask them and you speak to some of the family members and some of the community members, they feel like they got kind of kicked in the gut on the David Paulides story.
Yeah, and so I guess, maybe we start there, because I think to really quickly bring people through the David Paulides version of events, for, basic info on Tom, he was 84? 82? 84? 82. He was a former airborne soldier. He was a veteran, U.S. Army. He was half deaf and half blind after an accident with, I believe, some gunpowder, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
But at 82, he was still ambulatory. He was still moving around. And every year he would go on this hunting trip to land that I believe he owned in tandem with a couple of other families. And they would hunt not by Lily Pond, by Brant Lake. This one day, David Paulides says there were 7 of them that went down to Lily Pond. And they spread out. They split into 2 groups. There were going to be the older guys, the older generation. They were going to be stationary on a deer drive, waiting for the deer to be pushed towards them. The younger group was their sons, and they were going to be the ones who were out in the forest doing the deer drive. So sometime in the 3 hours or so they spend in those woods, which are oddly quiet, they see no deer, they hear no sounds. Sometime during that period, Tom just disappears, and they only notice when they get back to their truck and Tom's not there. And it's not that Tom dropped anything and went for a walk. It's that every single trace of Tom was gone. If you did not know Tom had been out there that day, you would not think Tom had been out there that day. And the story is presented as kind of like absolutely nobody had any idea what happened, and there was this extensive search and nothing was found. And just it's a mystery. And then of course Fritz Drum happens a week or so later down in what was the town for that? escaping me at the moment. But
oh gosh,
yeah,
ugh.
yeah. But Fred, Tom Messick disappears, and that's kind of it. It's just, this is so weird that this happened. There is no mention in the movie of the fact that there were 2 escaped convicts from a maximum security prison that the FBI was hunting for. That might be the reason for the FBI involvement in the case. But so that's the David Politis version of events. What caught me immediately was that I could only find 6 names. So that was a little weird. But I wanted to go into that. That's the David Politis version. You say that you feel like they got kicked in the gut, and you feel like it maybe left something to be desired. What would you say the main points are?
Well, here's one of the most important points is if you've traveled down Lily Pond Road, I don't know if you've been to the very end.
We were not able to get onto it because somebody wanted to take the Camaro.
I don't want to hear it. We both know.
That's one of my favorite parts of your film.
Thank you. Let's be fair. Both in the video and now, I will stand by the fact that it was, in fact, based on how we started this and why.
I know.
It fit the brand.
It fit the brand. Anyway.
Well, anyway, that road, and I sent you the film of us driving down that road. It's a 3.5 mile, pretty much a logging trail, used for hunters and used for fishermen. So it's about 3.3 miles to the end of Lily Pond Road, where the guys would park. Right. So at the end there, so at the end there, the forest is immensely rocky and very densely wooded. So hunting there, as a deer hunter, there wasn't a lot of line of sight, and you could tell that these guys had never been there before, because anyone that I spoke to in the community says nobody hunts that area for deer.
It was Sid's recommendation, according to the movie.
Yeah. And because Sid at that time, Sid had a house that wasn't far from Lily Pond Road proper. His house was maybe a half a mile past the road on the right.
Gotcha.
When he was living there. So I think they were just looking for that as an option. It's a very rugged area to hunt, and I would never hunt it. And it's just, I don't know why they went there for that. That was the strange thing. But I mean, that happens, right? You're hunting one area, let's go try another area. Obviously, they went there late. They weren't there until about 11 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. They didn't plan on being there that long. They found out that this wasn't the place they should be, and they wanted to leave. So I mean, that happens.
Right.
The main thing that we have to understand here is Paulides' narrative on where the guys were and how they went missing is completely skewed from the facts.
All right. So in what sense?
Well, if I sent you that interview with Chuck Cabral.
Yes, I watched that when we were doing our most recent video on Tom Messick.
Right. And that's a very important conversation to have, because the reason that Chuck Cabral and the DEC and the park rangers did not appear on the David Paulides movie is because they didn't want to be in that creepypasta stuff. It took me a long time to get them to come on camera.
Oh, they would not even respond to my emails.
It was about a 3-month period. I got Chuck's name from the search and rescue team. I got his number. I sent him a text, and maybe 3 months later, I was sitting outside the hospital waiting for my mother to get out of her physical therapy, and Chuck hit me back. It took that long.
Yeah, they do not want to talk about this case. And at first, it was very much my opinion that, because they know something's weird about it. Now I can kind of see that maybe they think that the most people that want to talk about it are thinking the David Paulides version is correct. And I want to make clear, I'm not intending to, bash David Paulides here, but this is part of the important work to be done when you're looking for missing people. When you're doing the important work, you do review each other, and that's important. So,
right. So I had to send the press secretary a list of the questions, and I had to promise that there was not going to be any reference to Bigfoot or UFOs or anything like that. And the secretary actually sat in on the interview, so she was there the whole time, watching and approving the questions and approving the answers.
Sure.
Now, after I spent some time with Chuck in the woods after that, and we spoke, and I find Chuck Cabral a very candid, very normal state forest worker. Right. I don't think there was anything nefarious. I think people want to read into this as being more strange than it actually is. I sent you the search maps. You saw copies of them. They're dumbfounded on what happened to them. And and they're dumbfounded because if anybody can get a chance, and maybe I'll post them somewhere, you're more than welcome to actually post them.
Aiden's pulling them up right now.
Yeah. And if you look at them, it's literally every possible area where a gentleman of his age could have gone, they went.
Yeah. That was my assessment too. As I was looking at it, I was like, there is nowhere outside. If he was lost, there's nowhere outside of this area that he couldn't have gotten his bearings, because anywhere outside of that area, you're on a main road. So he would have had to have been able to at least walk down a road and be able to look and be like, okay, I'm going north, I'm going south, east, west, whatever. So he should have been able to get his bearings if he was simply lost and in a clear state of mind. He just didn't know where it was. If he's not in a clear state of mind and he's in that area and he doesn't make it out, he should have been found. So I think those were the two things that stuck out to me. Was it's like, what situation occurs that allows him to leave this area?
Right. Well, we have to look at where was he when he went missing, right? Was he in a line with the other gentleman? Was he in the line with Sid, Al, Joe, and himself? No, he wasn't. He never sat down.
All right, so that's definitely I believe Politus says explicitly that he sat down on a stump or something like that. And when I was reading through the news reports and when I was looking at what Sid said about things, the impression that I got is that they parked the car, spaced themselves out about 100 yards along Lily Pond Road. Basically, at this point, I guess, technically running, northwest to southeast.
Right.
Lined up like that, parallel to the road, and then walked, a few yards into the forest and stopped. The interview that you had with Chuck seems to suggest that they were actually perpendicular to that orientation.
And that's where we lost, Mike Lucci and I lost like 3 days of searching because we were looking in the wrong spot. So we were searching before I interviewed Chuck. And had I interviewed Chuck first, it probably would have saved us like a lot of wasted time because we had metal detectors, we had shovels, we had teams of people up there searching. We would find little old hunting cartridges, a lot of old beer cans. We were finding everything that was there to be found metal wise. The problem was we were looking in the wrong spot.
Okay.
So you're exactly right. They were perpendicular to the road, Tom being the farthest one in at almost 300 yards.
All right. And out of curiosity, did Chuck tell you where he got that information?
He got that from Al.
Al.
Because he talked to Al and he said, he told Al as he was leaving, he goes, listen, I don't feel like sitting. I'm going to walk. He goes, You're supposed to sit, Tom. Well, I'm going to walk. And the last time he was ever seen was by Al, and he was walking in a northeastern direction up over the hill towards the top end of that snowmobile trail, far ahead of where the other guys were coming. So if you can see my hands here, and this is kind of hard here, is Tom's walking this way, and these guys are still coming up this way. So he had already been out of the area where they were by the time they got over here to circle back around.
Right. So, and maybe, are you a hunter? Sounds like you are. So I'm not. I'm not a city boy, but I am not a rural boy either. I'm from the suburbs. This deer drive technique, when I looked at the way that Politus suggested it went down, which was them parallel to Lily Pond Road, and the other guys going around, and basically they would have been pushing the deer up over a hill directly towards that line, the way Politus represents it. Is that how a deer drive would work usually?
Well, here again we return to the geography of this area.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense. The problem is when you have 4 guys sitting and 3 guys driving, right, in this thick wooded area, that's a lot of targets.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lot of collateral damage that could happen.
And that's what I was concerned about.
Right. Generally, how a deer drive works is I will sit in the blind and I will be facing this way, right? And I'll be watching this side. I'll have somebody behind me driving the deer that should run past me.
Gotcha.
And then once they're past me, there's no other hunters in front of me, so my shot is clear.
Yeah, so that
you want to spook the deer that are behind me to run past me,
right? And
then you shoot them when they're in the clear because then nobody's here. You can't drive the deer towards somebody and then have them shoot the deer in between the driver and the trigger man. It just doesn't make sense. Nobody does that.
That's what I was thinking because I do shoot. I've owned guns since I was 20. I was a Boy Scout. I've been shooting guns since I was 12. And that was the one thing that caught, like, when I saw that, I was like, that doesn't make any sense that they would be downrange of the shooters. So I figured it has to be either that you push, somebody will be looking that way and you're pushing the deer this way across, or that you're pushing the deer past. So I'm glad we got that clarification.
And that's why the perpendicular line makes much more sense.
Yes.
Right? Is if they're perpendicular to the road and the guys are driving the deer this way, right? Because they're coming up from behind. they drive the deer past the guys.
Right. So in your
So that made
opinion, do you think Politis was just wrong about their positioning, or do you think that somebody lied, or do you think that he specifically changed the story?
Here's well, I think he changed the narrative a little bit. I think he moved some stuff because, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, because I did interview one of the guys that was on the Politis Hunter 411.
Sure.
I did interview a gentleman that turned out to be a really pretty nice guy named Doug Smith, and he was in the show. And every time he gave an answer that David didn't like, they just kind of erased it and he didn't use it. And then the captain from the fire department got interviewed, and he didn't say anything that was creepy enough, so they just left him out of the whole interview. I had to promise to put him in the film because he got left out of the missing 411 one. So he's like, I'm not going to do an interview if nobody puts me in the damn film, because he didn't fit the narrative what David was saying.
Yeah, so that's not shocking to me. I spoke to some people in Sweetgrass County, I think it was, about it was whichever county was they actually had the undersheriff in. But I spoke to some people from Sweetgrass, I believe it was, about the Aaron Hedges case, and Politis just totally left out that he was detoxing from alcohol. Like, he was on alcohol withdrawal, he was on benzodiazepines, and he was drinking. Like, that, the things that don't make sense about Aaron Hedges' behavior suddenly make a lot of sense when you factor in that he was supposed to be detoxing from alcohol, and instead he was drinking while on benzos. Like, that's a major change from the reality to the narrative presented. So I'm not surprised you ran into that in this specific case, because it does seem to be a little bit of a problem, a little bit of a pattern that, I don't want to accuse David Politis of lying to make profit, because I don't know that that's the case. What I do think is that he has settled onto this belief of what's going on, and it's his own confirmation bias that's telling him certain things don't matter. At least that's what I'd like to believe about the situation. But if you want to pull up really quickly that interview with Chuck, do you mind if we play it?
No, of course. Yeah.
I thought that would be helpful, because I think he goes into some detail, and I wanted to clarify beforehand, where that information came from and why it might differ from what's presented with Politis before I showed it to people, because I don't want them to go like, all right, well, it's he said, she said. So,
and now just to let people know, Chuck was the second ranger there that day, and he was one of the first people to look for Tom the first night till midnight. So he was one of the first responders. He was off that day, but he got called in, and he was the second ranger to approach that day, to arrive that day. So it's not like this guy came in weeks later and interviewed these people. He interviewed them the first day.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think that's another important thing to mention is just the rangers in these cases are, generally speaking, incredible. Like, super dedicated people.
Yeah, and once we broke the ice and I ran into him and we actually spoke, and he saw that I wasn't trying to do anything nefarious or anything weird. I mean, he was even worried. He's like, why are you calling it Taken? And I had to explain why the film was being called what it was.
Yeah.
But once we got past that, he was very open and discussing everything he knew about it. He showed me his notebook. There was nothing he was trying to hide at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's the important part is that they're not trying to hide things, Everybody thinks that there's, and I for a long time thought that there was a sense that people were trying to keep something under wraps. And the more I've looked at this specific case, it's still weird as hell that he's not been found, but it's not quite as conspiratorial, I think. But if you want to, is that ready?
Real quick, so I just want to confirm, Brendan, with you. So of the 3 links you sent,
it's the teaser trailer.
The teaser trailer.
It's a teaser trailer.
This guy here.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Got it here. Let me transition so that way that is now. I believe there we go, and we will get it playing here right now.
Sounds good.
All right, so the last known point, we were talking about the last known point before we got distracted there, is so where that tree is, that was where their party last saw him. So how, as far as you know, how did the elderly man enter the woods?
So that's kind of a misnomer. The tree isn't actually the last known point, and technically what we have is actually a PLS. It's actually a point last seen. So last known point is like if he signed a register book, that's the last known point. We know he was there. We actually have a PLS because somebody saw him last. So that tree on the side of the road marks the spot where the 4, again, they were doing a deer drive. So the four were going to be the watchers. That tree is where they turned off the road.
I had it up over here.
Oh, okay,
so that's the spot where they went in. And my recollection is they spaced out about 150 yards or so. I can't remember the specific order, but I do know that Joe was the second to last, and Tom was going to be the fourth person in the woods. So they went in sort of at a left of 90 degrees angle. You know what I mean? They're kind of off to the left, off the road that way, angled across the hill. And they dropped the first watcher, dropped the second watcher. Joe and Tom kept walking. So Joe said, all right, I'm going to sit here. And Tom said, my understanding, my memory, I haven't looked at the notes in a long time, but my memory is that Tom had said to Joe, I don't feel like sitting, or I'm not going to sit, I'm just going to wander around a little bit. So Joe was the last person to see Tom, and at that time he was kind of going more or less in the direction of the line away from him up the hill.
There we go. Yeah, so kind of ends with, and as you can see on the map, for those who are watching, as you can see on the map, basically Tom of this hill the last time he's seen.
Right.
And then he just continues walking in a northeasterly direction from what Chuck is saying.
Right, because and like I said, he just didn't feel like sitting. And he had, they say he had a radio. I asked him, did he ever use his radio? No, the radio was never turned on. He never would turn the radio on. He had one of those little hunting walkie-talkie radios, and I know that because I have friends that hunt like that and refuse to turn the radios on.
Like, so, as in use it at all, or even flick it on?
It just not even on. So
wow.
The batteries, I'm not saying the batteries weren't charged. They may have been charged. Sometimes they sit in somebody's glove box for weeks and they're not charged or they're dead. But the thought of him having a radio, I don't see that as a big deal, because those things really don't last that long. And most hunters use the nickel and dime ones.
Gotcha.
I also sent you, we also did some tests there with some radios. I didn't film any of that, but the way the area is lined up, I don't see that as being, well, he had a radio, he could have called somebody. The radio may not work.
Gotcha.
May or may not have been charged, yeah.
So that definitely, that's not, that takes a little bit of the mystery out of it for sure, is that, there's could have been as simple as he just didn't have it charged. My thinking was like, how's a guy who's that experienced going to go out without a charged radio? But if that's more normal than I was expecting, that's perfectly understandable.
I will say sometimes you do have a tendency to attribute more common sense to people than is probably common.
I like to offer people the benefit of the doubt.
You do.
Yeah, and because I know we at hunting camp we have the little handhold Garmin radios that we use. So for times when we're driving, 9 out of 10 times we don't bring them, they don't work, or the battery's not charged, or somebody forgot theirs, and we end up using our phone. 9 out of 10 times, right? And I can tell you for 100% certainty, there is absolutely no service whatsoever in any of that area.
Yeah,
none.
We were up there.
Yeah, I remember us, even just from the roads, we were having difficulty trying to get signal in a lot of the areas that we were. So I can't even imagine all the way at the end of Lily Pond Road how bad it is.
I would assume it's a complete dead zone.
Yeah.
And that's here. I mean, like I said, I live in upstate New York. I don't live far from there, and it's the same thing because you guys were parked on Route 8, right, which travels along the lake, which is in a gully, right, and the towers for the cell phones are on top of these hills, right, so the gullies get overshot. Yeah. So it's very, like you said, it's more common than not that cell phone service doesn't work around there.
Yeah, it does not surprise me at all. So, and I did see you guys. You have you did a little audio test, just like person to person speaking.
Yeah.
We did much the same thing and had the same exact results, where it was you could basically hear each other at conversational volume at 100 yards.
I was, as you can see in the take when you saw it, I was amazed how quiet I could say something and Derek could hear me.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we were on the road, but it's, we were there. That was in August, right? So that you could see there was much more leaves on the trees.
Mm-hmm.
This happened in November, right? November 15th, there was no leaves on the trees, or very little leaves on the trees, because all the leaves there fall off from October 8th to October 21st. They're all gone.
Yeah.
So,
we were up there basically exactly 2 years ago, I guess.
Yeah, it was right at this time of year.
2022.
2022. Yeah.
So we were up there.
I watched yours, and that was one of the catalysts of going, you know what, I got to get up there.
Yep.
I got to do this thing. I honestly did. I remember watching yours because you parked your car there, and then one of you guys went up into the hill and was yelling, and then you're and I go, you know what? Let me get up there and let's go figure this thing out.
Yeah. So in June, even with the leaves and everything, you can hear pretty well, and that was from you can hear me from the GoPro audio. The GoPro microphone set up probably 5 yards behind you
At least
close
yeah,
to the
if
ground.
not more.
Yeah,
Far enough for me to not be able to get to it when it fell over.
yes. You can hear me on the GoPro's microphone.
And that's
so,
with trucks and cars going by on the road that's just behind the GoPro.
yeah, it's audible. You
Yeah.
can hear. Yeah, so I mean, from there, and I will remind everybody, because I'm just checking it on the time, that when it comes to the Q&A session at the end of the show, try to get your super chats in by 7:45, at the very latest by 8, and we will try to we'll get to everything that comes in before 8, but we may not get to everything that comes out after 8. So, and make sure, make sure to ask the question directly.
Yes.
You only get so many characters.
Yes.
Yeah. So going back to what went on in there, we've got got the hunt the radios aren't as big an issue. We know that Politus changed a few things, but as you found and as I found, it's still kind of mind-boggling that he was not found in those woods, because this was a search effort with hundreds of people, multiple days. We've got professionals, we have volunteers, we have state, we have federal, we have local. It was well coordinated, and this is not a huge search area. It was 7.5 square miles or something.
Yeah, I think they ended up searching. I think they ended up searching over 12 and a half.
Yeah.
By the time, if you look at those maps I sent you,
But
the original search area was about 7 miles, and the amount of manpower they put to bear on that area was amazing, because they had searchers on top of searchers on top of searchers, right? They had, at one point they had too many people, right? They were like, literally, where do we put these people?
Yep.
Because we have to make sure. And this is what these people do up there, right? This is the Adirondacks. This takes up over a third of New York State, right? This is a huge area of mountains and forest. But these search and rescue crews, this is what they do. This is right in their wheelhouse. So
right.
Yeah, it's dumbfounded. And if you ask some of the locals, right, because we spent some time, we stayed at the Panther Mountain Inn, which is kind of the local watering hole / hotel.
Right.
And it was the best place to go, because at night, that's the only place in town for dinner and drinks, and everybody's got a theory on it. And it was kind of nice to talk to a lot of people about that. And I think a lot of them, you'll get the conspiracy that he was never there, because there's no way they couldn't have found him.
Yeah, that is what we ran into. We ran into two things. People came up with the idea that he was actually never out there, and that basically that he intended to disappear were the two things we heard. Or that they just didn't remember, they barely remembered it at all. And they were like, oh yeah, that happened. I mean, there was a guy running a general store right outside of Brant Lake who we talked to, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was like back in like 2015 or something, right? Oh, it was weird, yeah. And that was all he could tell us. There was no further thought.
And I went, on that note, I went back as far as I could go with Tom, right? When he was born, where he spent his life, how his mother died, where she died, how close he was to his mother. I went through all of that to see if there was any type of weird thing where he could kind of drift off and go someplace. And he was a family man. He loved Beverly. He was married to her for over 40 years. He had 3 great kids. They were as tight as a family could get, from Cub Scouts to rifle training classes to Boy Scouts to hunter safety classes to all these things to camping every weekend. They were as close as a family could be. So him just wandering off just doesn't fit the narrative. But if you talk to a gentleman named David Coster, which did the Art of Search and Rescue, he wrote the book on search and rescue, right? Mm-hmm. And they've done tests where they've put a person in, a mannequin in, and people have missed it. They've literally walked right past that thing within 2 feet and missed it.
Jeez. Because
he wasn't wearing. Had he been wearing blaze orange, I think he would have been found.
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
So on that note, it's very odd that he was not found. That's kind of the general feeling about it, because these were grid searches, and because it was you were no more than an arm's length from the next person. But obviously it's possible that somebody could be missed. You said that the parks, the rangers and everything are still dumbfounded about it, though. So in your opinion, what do you think is going on here? Do you think he's still in there, or do you think he's not?
I talked to Chuck about this, and I've spoken with a couple of guys that I've worked with. And if you look at that map, right? If you look at the map, let me just pull it up here. If I can give me a second.
Yeah, they can see it on our end too.
Yeah,
I got to pull it up so I can take a look at it though, because let's see, where is it?
I'll pull it up so you can look at it as well.
Yeah.
It's because of where he went. If I had to put money on where he was, right?
Uh-huh.
If I had to put money on it, I would say he's somewhere by M.
By M on the map.
M
Okay.
and O, right there. F1, M and O.
So
Now,
basically, just with it somewhere south of Lily Pond.
No, that's north.
Oh, that's north of Lily Pond?
Yeah, Lily
Yeah.
Pond's down here.
Oh, okay. My
Yeah.
bad. I was
So
misunderstanding where we were.
he was last seen in B and E, right? That's where
Okay.
he was last seen. Let's give him the
Yes.
dip, but B to E, right?
Sure.
So I'm saying somewhere MO or N2, right in there. We're gonna hit when we go back up this fall. We're gonna hit O like a son of a gun,
Okay.
right? We're gonna because I've talked to Chuck and I believe he's got to be in there somewhere, man. He's got to be in. And the rifle now. I talked to Lynn Keel, which is one of the county coroners up there. And granted, you might find a hip bone, right? The rubber boots are probably long gone, but the gun,
The gun should be there.
the gun, right? The gun is there, and that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it's just a hip bone, honestly. Like depending on what happened. But so you think that he kept going. What makes you think that spot specifically? Is it because it was outside of the intensive search area?
Yeah, because I spoke to a couple of guys that searched those intent. He goes, literally, we were on top of each other, on top of like they crisscrossing, and I think he was just on the other side of that. Also, you have to remember, people get tired, right? Human nature.
Yeah.
Right. You have a lot of these volunteers after the third or fourth day. All it takes is somebody not paying attention for 15, 20 seconds, walks right past them. Now, will that be done 5 or 6 times?
Probably
That's
not.
that's the thing, right? So, in my heart of hearts, and I want nothing more than closure for the family.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't call. I was going to call Beverly. I opted for the film not to get in touch with her.
That was the same thing we did.
I talked to her eldest son, Ed Jr. or Tom Jr. And he said, listen, my mom has been through hell. It's just, she just turned 80. She's trying to put her life in. And he was the last thing I want to do is pick the scab.
Right.
And as a filmmaker, I'm like, man, I would love this interview. But as a human being, right, I had to say, you know what, we're going to go without her in the film.
Right. I think that's the right decision. I feel like if the family felt that something else had happened here, she would not be the only one who would feel that way. She would not be the only one to express it, and it would probably come out through one of his sons. In my opinion, I think you made the right choice there. I don't think that, and she wasn't even there, And
that's the thing. It's as a filmmaker, right? You want that tender moment that Paulides had in his film, right? You want that thing, but as a human being, I just felt like maybe this family, because I thought if somebody came and spoke to my mother about my father, if this ever happened to my family, I would have a hard time letting a second film crew through the door.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you say that now. Early on, you said that this was kind of a gut punch for the family. When you say that, I assume it's because of the way that the story came across in the movie, not necessarily.
Yes.
Because they said not necessarily because like when they went there it was super difficult to talk about. I'm sure it was, but what do you feel after, I guess, talking to a member of the family? What came across to you about why they might have felt like it wasn't properly represented or something like that?
Well, because a lot of the facts, there was some facts that were wrong, right? So if you look at where he says it rained, right?
Yeah.
It rained right after. It didn't rain until Sunday, right? So it rained 4 days later.
I think the reason he put that in there is probably because his whole missing 411 thing involves bad weather coming in right after.
Right. But also you got to look at, if you do the math on that, right? Hunters hunt in the fall. Fall is generally bad weather.
Yeah.
Right. So, but so that you got the positioning wrong. And to be honest with you, you're seeing what they aired, right?
Yeah.
So he probably asked a lot of the questions. I know he asked the firefighters a good deal about Bigfoot, a good deal about their thought about UFOs and portals, right? He brought up portals, and they chose not to answer these questions. I guarantee you, some of those questions are on the editing room floor for both his son, right, that was there, and Beverly. I guarantee it, because why would he break his MO to do that, right?
And that's what frustrates me so much too. Is recently, as we've been starting to cover some of these cases in more depth again, I've said on a few occasions, he implies that it's Bigfoot, and a lot of people are like, no, he doesn't. He never says it's Bigfoot. And I'm like, okay, but you got to understand, before he was doing this, the way he stumbled across Missing 411, according to him, is he was researching Bigfoot. And if you read through a lot of the books, he never says explicitly it's Bigfoot, but he'll be like, something must have taken them, you know?
And that's the beauty. And that's just him being a good filmmaker, man.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, he's not doing this. This is more like science fiction. To be honest with you, this isn't fact. Let's be honest with you, because you've uncovered a lot of cases that have he's gone astray. But as a filmmaker, with him and the guy that he does editing with, they do a great job.
Oh yeah, they're phenomenal documentarians.
Because when I watched The Hunters, I'm like, damn, that's freaking good, because it creeped me out. But that's what he wanted, and that's not where I'm going in our film Taken.
Yeah. Oddly, I think I don't understand why he didn't touch the Bart Schleyer one. Maybe it's because Canada is notoriously difficult to work with the RCMP and all that. But the Bart Schleyer one is honestly weird. Yeah. And he just didn't go near it in Hunters, which is so strange.
Well, I think your point that you said is really telling, because earlier when we were talking about, kind of giving even him the benefit of the doubt of like maybe he's just getting things wrong, or maybe it's his own confirmation bias without him realizing it, of wanting to essentially find the answers to his hypothesis rather than pursuing it from a journalistic perspective of, follow the facts, not necessarily follow your instinct of what it is.
Yeah,
per se.
Yeah, it's like he's looking for the corner pieces to a puzzle, right? He's looking for the pieces that fit his narrative. Yep. Right, I got to find the corner piece because it fits here and it fits my narrative. So you're right. He's looking for the parts that he can bring into his narrative.
Yep. And I think that's honestly my opinion on Smiley Face Killers too. Is like a lot of these. I don't want to call them conspiracy theories because I don't really think that's the right term for it. But a lot of these serial killer theories and paranormal, just for disappearances, I think what it boils down to in a lot of cases is somebody comes up with something that is bombastic enough to capture people's attention, but then as they dig deeper into it, they maybe find that it's not quite what they presented it to be, and they don't know. Maybe they worry that if they go to the most honest route, that they'll lose money, or maybe they think, all right, well, I'm here now, I got to double down.
Well, I think as somebody who studied both film and journalism in college, there's definitely two conflicting motivations here.
Yeah.
And considering, a lot of these things are essentially a level of reality TV,
yes,
you're gonna have a difficult time being able to trust that they were only following the facts.
Yeah.
There's definitely an element of sensationalism rather than journalism that's happening within these different programs. And I think, given the nature of the avenues in which they're being shown, like the Oxygen Network and Netflix and things like that, they're not, they're not the New York Times. They're not like, the Washington Post. They're not, the Chicago Tribune. They're not these like, reputable journalistic outlets that were at least attempting to follow the facts in one way or another.
We are gonna get comments about that.
We are. I'll say this is
we are gonna get comments about you calling any of those journals reputable.
Well, historically, maybe they've been brought into question in the last 20 years or so. But we'll talk.
Oh, I'm not arguing with you. I'm calling it right now. There will be comments.
But from
even I had to hold my tongue.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't think of any other ones that.
I'm just kidding.
Come on, man. Don't you know the Epic Times is the peak of journalism?
Yeah, right.
I get all of my news from Mike Lindell.
But so that's the thing, is when you look at it from the perspective of like the networks these are airing on and what their motivations are, they're out there to tell a good story, not necessarily to tell a journalistic truth per se.
And that's to make a perfect point exactly to illustrate what you said is I went into you go to the Hunters 411 subreddit, right? And I went in there and I explained to everybody exactly what I was doing, and everybody started following me. But once I told them about the Chuck Cabral interview, right, they literally got mad at me. They were upset with the fact that it wasn't as creepy as they thought it would be.
See, I had the opposite experience with the subreddit. Like when I went onto the Reddit, they were mad at me for thinking a case was weird.
Really?
Yeah, it was Jim McGrogan. I was like, how do you explain this, and this? And they banned me. I'm not even kidding.
The subreddits, if you go to the Bigfoot subreddit or the Missing 411 subreddit, those are the last places you need to go for information.
No.
Those places are cesspools, man.
When it comes to Reddit for information, I trust it for, like, recipes and how to fix my muffler.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to Reddit for anything opinion-based.
Practical how-to.
No, it's a good, for me, it's a jumping off point. I'll
Yeah.
find something that I haven't heard of and kind of go, okay, I need to, because you need to, especially in this day and age, you need to do your own research. Luckily, I was in the position and geographical location to do my own research on this show, on this film. And once I got started with it, I'm like, let's see this to the end. And even if it didn't come out on time, it will come out eventually within the next 6 or 8 months when it's ready.
Exactly.
And it's done. And it will be something that I can be proud of, that I've done the family, because at the end of the day, this is a living, breathing human being that had family members, that had community members, had best friends that loved him dearly. This is a tragic, tragic story. And to do it any other way than the most truthful way you can is just really cutting the family off at the knees, man. It's just, yeah, it's like you said, it's not journalism.
Well,
it's sensationalism.
That leads to a question I had for you as a filmmaker that is pursuing truth in this avenue. I know for us in particular, some of the topics that we're talking about here and some of the ways in which we are, showing them essentially. We run into the issue that we cover certain topics like Bigfoot or anything like that from a fact-based perspective, and when our conclusions don't match the collective desired outcome, we'll get resistance there, even on our stuff. So I'd be curious to hear, in things that you've done in the past or as you work through this, what has been kind of some of the responses of those who might have already formulated an opinion that now you are contradicting?
That's a very, very good question, because, and to be honest with you, the less creepy something is, the less people are going to want to watch it, right? That's just the way it is. And so I think, and I'm a firm believer that if you develop and you find good characters, right, you find people that people can engage in and listen to a story, right? The actual truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, right? How do these people feel because he was never found, right? At the end of the day, the film Taken will be about the community of HorrorCon, right? It'll be about what was the effect of the family and the community on the fact that this gentleman went missing. Yes, he was just one of thousands of people that go missing in the Adirondacks, but this is one story. This is one case. And I think if you develop the characters and you talk to the real people, and I think that will supersede or trump any type of, strangeness, because you can point out the strangeness, but I think that telling the story and telling it in an engaging way has always been, to me, more exciting. Yeah, and you know what? If I ruffle a few feathers along the way, then I'm sorry. That's just okay.
I honestly think that might be part of why our Killdozer video did as well as it did.
Why?
Not only was it good timing.
The title was "You Were Lied To About Killdozer."
Partially, and not only was it good timing on our part, but I think that was one of the videos that we've done the most where it truly followed like somebody's story.
Yeah,
that was entirely Marvin Heemeyer's story as opposed to like some of the things we've done. So just like using a current example from our end, I can agree with you with that. I think, having an interesting character at the center of your story.
Really had over 1 million views, right?
Yeah.
1,000,004 or something like that.
Yeah, it's cruising. It's still, it's crazy.
The best video we've ever had, shockingly enough.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's it. Like I said, just real quick, is there are people within these stories, right? So that's why it was important for me to find 1 or 2 characters from the Taken video movie, or the Hunters 411 movie, and put them in my movie, right? And have them tell the story the way it really happened.
Right.
Regardless of the sensationalism, telling me exactly what it was like up there and how it was. And people can make up their own minds. And like you said, engaging characters tell stories, and it may not always be sensational, but it's a hell of a lot more truthful and fun for me to make.
Yeah. And if
I can live with myself at the end of the day.
Exactly. That's the important part.
Yeah.
If you're good at it, if you put in the work, you can take pretty much anything that's happened, especially something like this, and turn it into a good story that will keep people guessing, keep them watching, keep them engaged. It's just a lot harder than starting from a premise of, was this person taken by Bigfoot? Because that immediately catches people and you're going to get views. Otherwise, you got to craft a story, and that's too much effort.
Right. And at the end of the day, right, however the movie ends, because I'm still working on it, editing a couple of scenes to shoot, and I'm still going to go up there this fall. At the end of the day, he's still out there. Right? So at the end of the day, he is still there. Where is he?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and I think I really like the way that you're going about it. I really like the way that you're doing it. You have my full support on this. I guess the last thing I'd want to ask is, before we we're getting close to that Q&A session.
Yeah, that's 10 minutes out.
Is there anything specifically when you were talking to family, maybe friends, locals in the area that struck you as like something that anything you feel comfortable sharing, I guess, that Politus cut or that they wish had been included. They feel like they said that they didn't get to speak their piece because it didn't end up in the movie. Like, was there anything that people were upset about, I guess?
Well, I think the most part the most I got from people is what I mentioned before. Is he was trying to push the portals, the Bigfoot narrative, the creepy pasta thing, right? A lot of the guys, 2 or 3 of the firefighters I interviewed, and were like, you know what, everything was fine, and then suddenly he turns around and he starts talking about portals and Bigfoot and what I thought of it, and he was trying to catch me in like a conversational attitude. And then he was asking me these questions. So, and they're like, they kind of shut down immediately because they didn't want that to come out. Because you know how you can creatively edit stuff, right?
Yeah.
Put stuff in there. And I think that was the big thing is he was trying to sneak around, do an end around with some of these people and try to get their confidence, talk to them, man to man or man to woman, and then suddenly kind of punch in the so. That whole, so what do you think of portals? Or do you think he's in a portal? And unfortunately for him, nobody took the bait because it wasn't really in there.
I gotta say, I do love the idea that all of the firefighters had the wherewithal and the forethought to be like, I know you're probably going to edit this in a way that I don't want you to, so I'm just not going to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, the fire chief was like, he was upset because David was kind of getting frustrated with him because he was telling him the truth and saying, listen, it wasn't like that. It was this. It didn't rain. It was kind of, we did this, or this is what they do. And his whole interview just got left out of the movie. So trying to get him to do another film, he was really kind of pulling teeth there,
Yeah. So with the family specifically, I guess Tom Jr., was there anything that he said that contradicted or that struck you as odd between him and Paulides?
Tom didn't speak with him, right? It was Rob that spoke with him. The most thing I got with him, because I only spoke with him on the phone, was that the family just kind of wanted to be, it was a sad thing. And I had a hard time. Once I finally got his phone number and got in touch with him, I had a hard time making that phone call because what do you say? Like you call somebody, right? And you say, listen, I know your dad died and it's creepy. I want to make a film about it. How do you come out and stuff like that? And so I had more respect for the family and their privacy going in, than I did going into the film. Because I thought literally I was going to be able to, I'll just go in and talk to him, knock on the door and talk to him. But once you get to that location and once you talk to people, it's like, you know what? I think I'm just going to leave this out. And it's just because, and so I think I'm a better filmmaker for it because I've learned that there's lines that I won't cross. And I think these are privacy lines that I think I'm better off for learning it that way.
Yeah. I agree.
But nothing, it's just like I said. This is an all-American family, right? They had a great life. He served his country. He loved his wife. He had great kids. He had great grandkids. And this is just a tragic accident. And what's tragic about it is there's no closure with the family. Right? There's nobody in that grave in Troy. There's nobody under that marker. And that I wanted nothing more than to bring that guy home for his wife. That's the main thing. And I thought we were close. I honestly thought, because Chuck's like, listen, now, if you find him, you got to stop. Don't be picking around things and, just get it. Because he's like, he warned me twice. Because I'm like, I think we're on like the right path here. He's like, well, don't be picking things up and carrying them around and filming and doing this. And he goes, so we'll see. It's just, it's sad. But you guys are more than happy to come up this fall and join us for a weekend.
We might take you up on that.
Yeah,
we'll bring the
You
Jeep this time.
stay at the Panther Mountain Inn, dude. The Panther Mountain Inn is so much better than the Days Inn in Albany. I'll tell you that much.
Anything would be better than the Days Inn in Albany.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to get worse than the Days in Albany.
Aiden tried to escape
I did, almost.
out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. It wouldn't let me.
Yeah, and then we went to a diner that had really bad waffles.
They weren't terrible.
I saw that. I did see that.
Yeah, I was not a fan of the waffles. Anyway, is there anything you want to get across before we switch over to questions?
No, I think, like I said, the documentary is called Taken. Because Tom was taken from his community, taken from his family and his friends, taken from his loved ones, right? And by an unforeseen set of circumstances, right? We don't know what happened to him.
Yeah.
Did he fall? Did he have a heart attack? Where is he? So that it's called that. It will be coming out through the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective. And obviously, when it's done, I will reach out to you guys and we will do a big push on it.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you, have you on to talk about conclusions.
Yeah.
It seems premature to ask what do you think happened if you haven't had a chance to really go in and check. Okay,
I'm going to hold that off because that's the end of the end of the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I had to save a couple punches for the end of the movie. So
exactly.
Understandably so.
All right. Yeah. Then I think we'll get switched over to questions. I see a few in there.
Yeah, we got a few.
And I think there's If you got any left, there's about 4 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, so anybody who
deadline.
wants to get in their questions for question time, feel free to. But starting us off from Quattro, who's been a member for 22 months at this
Damn,
point.
Quattro, you've been around a while.
Yes, absolutely. Saying, "What's up, Dork? I'm unfortunately back in California, so no more Virginia living for me, and damn do I miss Waffle House already."
Yeah. See, like I said, waffles.
Yep.
That's important to everybody. Yeah,
It is
Quattro is one of the most chaotic people to play Call of Duty with because he will be exactly where you don't want him to be.
Valid. I'm liking what Totally Not JMO is concluding here for $12.37 because it's right up our, or at least one of our alleys. I was once lost, but now I am found. I consumed of the milk of the given knowledge. Diesel is superior to gasoline in every way, and you should acquire a diesel for the trips you will do. And boy, oh boy, do I have something to tell you. We do, in fact, have a diesel.
He spent, I don't want to know how much money on a 1989 Ford F-350.
Less than you think.
350. That's a big truck.
It's a big truck. It takes up the entire driveway of this house.
It's a dually, and it's out front right now.
It's right out there.
That ain't gonna fit up Lily Pond Road, buddy. That's too big.
No,
we could probably fit a solid 3 sedans out there. We fit 1 truck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Less than you think, but it's a great time. Hey, it helped demo Cat's house.
That's
so,
true.
You know, I bought it because it was purpose driven. So, and we moved.
Thought it was Thornbury driven.
We moved, well, temporarily. We moved most of your things with
That's
it.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we built these tables with it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Anyway.
I understand why men have pickup trucks now.
Yeah.
Like as a
I
child,
have a
I didn't
pickup
get
truck.
it, but
Yeah.
now I'm like,
I got a
okay,
pickup truck. Yeah.
I might get a pickup truck too, or I might pay somebody to pull off some weird mods on the Jeep.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just get a Gladiator.
might. I like the old style, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, next question.
Yep. James Haroda for $4.99 says, y'all should look into the case of Bet's Sphere. More in the UFO realm. J. Allen Heinck, the National Enquirer involved. Pretty bizarro one. Love y'all. Have you heard of this one?
No, I know J. Allen Hynek was, though. J. Allen Hynek was did Project Blue Book, right, back for the UFO. He was a big time scientist that that researched UFOs. But I don't know that story. No.
No, I don't either, but worth taking a look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Local Legends Burt Moran for $5 says, I might have an interview with Wayne Westerberg, the guy Chris McCandless worked for in South Dakota.
Ah, yes, he reached out to us about that. We should we should have a discussion.
I agree, because that's a fantastic interview to get.
Yeah, we want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely email the lorelodge@gmail.com. That has the best chance of getting seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Quartermaster Kellen, the official data for $4.99. I hope you enjoy that little nickname I bestowed upon you after the last 2 streams that you're aware of. Just my theory, Tom wandered off for whatever reason, got lost, and a predator of some sort got to him. What do you think?
That seems like it's definitely a possibility. Brendan, you're familiar with the area more than we are. Are there any large predators you would think of?
In that area, I mean, you always have the chance of bears, right? But the bears there, that time of year, are kind of getting ready for hibernation. I don't think they're anything big enough. Plus, he also had a rifle, right? To be honest with you, that's something that might happen in mountain lion territory.
Mm-hmm.
There are no mountain lions in the Adirondacks. In my heart of hearts, I believe he had some sort of heart attack or an aneurysm and fell in a way where he's just kind of fell down and kind of went under some sort of thing, right?
Yeah, because you would think if he knew he was lost, he would have fired his gun 3 times in the air.
Yeah. I mean, but also it's the predator thing is there. Yeah. There would be if it was a predator, right? You would find a debris field, right? You'd find scatter, right? There'd be clothing or torn or something like that. Predators are notoriously messy.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to pick up the thing and carry it away. So unfortunately, it's a good theory, but I'm going to have to pass on that one.
That's why the Bart Schleyer one is so weird, is because they found almost nothing of him, and then the RCMP concluded it was a bear. Yep. Even though an actual conservationist who worked in the area was like, this was not a bear. And all of the bear experts were like, this is not a bear.
Yeah. Well, the other
bears create an enormous amount of blood when they attack somebody,
yeah.
Right? They enormous amount of blood. And if you look at that Timothy Treadwell story, right? That I saw pictures of that, and boy, I tell you, man, they are messy. So, and this was also in the fall, right? So you're looking at ski. There would have been a big debris field, right? A battle area.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about the bears up in our area, in Pennsylvania, and then up in upstate New York, they're generally black bears, are
Yeah.
they not?
Almost always
Yeah.
black bears.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any brown bears out this far east.
No, there's not. And any encounter I've ever had with a black bear, it was far more terrified of me than I of it, and I am not a large person.
Yeah, black bears aren't as big as people think they are.
Not around here. No.
Yeah, out here you're gonna get like 5 feet, 5 to 6 feet
Yeah.
max.
300 pounds ish.
Yeah.
It's rare to see them in 400 ish.
Hey, Amanda, and every woman watching, you do not pet the bear, okay? See, she said, but it's cute. This isn't sexism. This is that I feel I need to tell her this.
What?
Do not pet the bears.
What's wrong with? What's?
Do not pet the bear.
I'm with her on this. I've seen way too many videos of guys that have somehow adopted grizzlies, and like No, I know, but like, I saw one a couple days ago where a guy was hanging at a windowsill, and a grizzly bear just like came up and put his arm around him, and they were just,
Yeah,
like,
no, I know. That is the outlier.
Russia seems like a wild.
Do not
time.
pet the bear.
I saw a
pet the
video
bear.
today from Russia. They had a bear. There was a brown bear in the sidecar of a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yep.
I saw that on TikTok today. It's like,
Russian bears are a different level.
They're a different breed, man. They're circus bears.
I think they just spend so much time around people.
Maybe.
Yeah. Kodiak bears, don't touch them.
What's the one Polish bear that was like the artillery bear? It's like Wojak or something. Yeah, and he would like carry the artillery shells for him. And he'd eat packets of cigarettes and drink beer with him.
Hell yeah.
Amazing.
Hell yeah.
Brotherhood transcends
Beartherhood.
species lines.
Beartherhood.
Beartherhood.
Exactly. See? Anyway.
Moving on. Candace for $5 says, number one, I'd love to see the Weird Bible Crew analyze The Chosen like you did with 80s slashers. And two, potential case of Vasilla IA axe murders. I'm assuming that's like Iowa or something? Or
I
Indiana?
think somebody brought these up in relation to the Axeman of New Orleans.
Okay.
I think there was a train involved in those two.
Yeah, it's The Man from the Train book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at it.
Yeah, I don't know. That was a weird one. I don't know if you heard of this, Brendan, but in New Orleans in the early 1900s, there was somebody going around hacking up Italian families with axes. But he always used an axe or a tool or whatever that he found at the crime scene. And all of the houses he attacked were within, a certain radius of a trolley line.
Really?
And yeah, and it's like, as you look at it, nobody seemed to consider the trolley line to be part of it.
Yeah, it was kind of weird how poor the investigation was.
Well, it was like 1915 in New Orleans.
Well, look at Lizzie Borden, right? Look at the Lizzie Borden case.
Mhm.
I mean, that's obviously it was her, right?
Yeah,
But
like, who else could it have been?
Yeah.
Um,
I think the downside is, especially with a lot of like the cop shows that are on television, we all have a tendency to assume that
the
they're-
police are competent.
they're better at their jobs or more interested in doing their jobs well than average.
Well, also that they have the funding, because every time you see
Yeah.
a cop show, it's like they get a case, and that's the only case they work for 2 weeks, and it's like, no.
I was working at a place that there was a break-in next door, and the detectives, and I won't say where, the detectives came to me for the footage for the cameras we had outside, which clearly showed the guy breaking into the store. I gave them all the footage. 2 months later, they came back and said, "Hey, do you still have that footage? Because we lost it. Can you send it to us again?" So yeah, detectives aren't always smart as the CSI guys you see on TV.
We had a guy go missing from a bar not far from here. Gone for 14 days. 2 weeks after he goes missing, he turns up in a creek outside behind the bar. And hadn't decomposed at all in those 2 weeks. Definitely should have. And the cops were like, well, he must have gotten drunk and fell in. Now, keep in mind, they combed this creek for 2 weeks, and he wasn't in there. And then he shows up. They're like, well, must have been something totally normal.
That's that smiley face killer stuff right there.
Yep.
That's the same thing, right?
That's how we came across it, was Tommy Booth, and we ended up talking to his mom. I have his autopsy sitting in my house. Like, I have his autopsy files. I have all of the police case. I have every single bit of information on the guy, and every time I look at it, I go, yeah, he was murdered.
Yeah.
And the cops, we went and we talked to him, 2 months ago? Can't have been that long ago. Brought it up to him. We were like, hey, we think that there's some stuff you guys might have missed. Could we get some of this footage? And we asked for the footage before any of the, there's some stuff we missed. We asked them for this footage, and what they gave us was not what we requested at all. And we were like, is this that they didn't know? Is this that they intentionally gave us the wrong thing? We don't know what to think.
And the other thing is, like, in the autopsy photos, you see clearly, like, it's not like in the video that we originally did, we didn't have access to that, and we were like, oh yeah, there was a stick in the ground around him. There are like 3 different sticks going through some of his like clothing and like different limb positions.
Yeah, like they planted sticks into the mud next to him to keep him from moving, so that he would be found right there.
Exactly, and he wasn't there the previous day.
Yeah, when somebody walked that exact spot less than 24 hours before he was found. And did not see him.
That's and it's probably in a fairly urban area, or
yeah, suburban Philadelphia. It's Wynwood, right?
Roughly, yeah. And it was like it's right. The creek is literally right behind a strip mall.
There is a strip mall and then a university.
Yeah,
on each side of the creek.
Right in between them. Yeah. And a big the university has like a track field on that side, and then on the other side there's like a big baseball diamond.
Yep,
right behind the strip mall.
Granted, it's not the kind of place that there's like a nice little creek trail right next to it, but it's not secluded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Weird. Anyway, Eleanor Howler Werewolf Queen for $19.99, thank you very much, says, we know that even if Tom's radio was dead, if he could have verbally called out, he would have been heard. He should have been found if he were in the search area. There were way too many people looking. Why hasn't he been found?
Yeah, so
that's the points that I reiterate in the movie. Those are the same freaking points I reiterate in the movie. She hit it. Is that a girl, lady?
Yeah.
Yep.
You hit the nail right on the head. This is what makes it such an interesting case. Is and we have to put the he was kidnapped or spirited away. Let's take that off the table, right? He didn't go through a portal. The Bigfoot did not carry him away. I'm sorry to break anybody's heart with that one, but he's there. Where is he? But she nailed it on the head. It's very frustrating, especially when you spend weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks up there trying to figure out where the hell this guy is.
Yeah, the part that really had me baffled was the fact that dogs couldn't catch him. Like the dogs couldn't find him.
And that's funny because I talked to there's a great book I got from Charles Cabral, who, like I said, wrote the Search and Rescue book. And you'd be amazed at how many times dogs don't hit on targets.
Yeah.
Right? There's good dogs, there's bad dogs. You'd be amazed that people got to stop trusting what they see on TV and in the movies. You'd be amazed at how many times dogs lose sight and scent. It just happens.
Have they had a cadaver dog specifically out there?
Yeah, they had a cadaver dog up there. They had a cadaver dog up there. I think 2 years ago they had one up there.
Might be worth it to bring in a second one at some point and see if you can find it.
And people, they still search. They still train in the area. They still search. I mean, this haunts Chuck Cabral, the ranger up there. That's his backyard. That's where he patrols. And this keeps him up at night, right? And so everybody still checks in and does their searches up there. And I believe one day somebody's going to just be walking down the path and a snowmobile trail, and there's going to be this 30-30 or 30-06. I forget exactly which one it was, but they're going to trip over the barrel, and there's going to be the gun. And then it's going to be, oh, he's right here. There he is.
Yep.
It's just it's one of those things. Sometimes people just aren't found.
Yeah, and you only hope that
as hard as that is to accept, that's just the case.
Yeah, and you only hope that it's somebody who either knows about it or has the wherewithal and the honesty to call the Rangers and say, "Hey, I found a gun," and not just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think most people that hunt up there, you don't get a lot of. That part of the park really isn't for the faint of heart. Like, you get the real campers and the real outdoorsmen up there. You don't get the weekend warriors up in that part of the park because you really can't. It's not accessible. Yeah. There's really not a parking lot for you to do. And I even tried to get in touch with Keyhole satellite servers, right, to find out if there was a satellite over that part of New York on that day. And there was, but because of the weather, there's no way you could get. I was trying to see if you could find, because it's elevation of 40 feet, the resolution. Right. Like, man, that would be nice if you could just see a little something and see the direction it's going.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes people just aren't found. And it's as hard as that is to accept, we're not the ones that actually looked for them. So imagine how hard it is for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally Not JMO back at it again for $5.64. We love the specificity. Once I get an actual good computer, it's over for you. I will be the milk's greatest servant, and in my own investigations into random things will spew forth.
I mean, hey, we've taken on new shows.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Sam for $5 says, love how analytical you guys are. You're doing great work. P.S. Check out the horror movie Lovely, Dark, and Deep. It's inspired by Missing 411. Has anybody here heard of it yet?
I have not. Lovely, Dark, and Deep. I will say one of the movies that got me most interested in Missing 411 was the Descent. So I was like, that would be a creepy thing that this could be.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, there's no caves up there though, unfortunately.
Yeah. Which is the weird thing. Like, you would think there would be caves in the area.
Well,
It's very rocky. I sent you a couple of pictures of the searchers,
Yeah.
right? I think I sent you some stills.
You did,
and you
yeah.
can see how thick and rocky and it is there. The terrain is just miserable. There are swamps, obviously, and a little bit of flatland, but the forested areas are very rough.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because generally you're going to have caves in like more limestone-ish style rock formations, and I think similar to up there, down here, it's a lot of shale, and you're not really going to get a lot of like cave-like structures in that unless there were active mines at one point.
Yeah. And that place had never been mined. It'd been forested, right? It'd been cut back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Right, but it had never been mined. I just got to. I'll be right back.
You're fine. Well, it brings up the sawdust pile thing, but I know we've kind of dismissed the possibility of that. Kellen, the official data, is back at it again from $4.99, saying, just saying that there are 6,000 to 8,000 bears and there are cougar sightings in New York. Tom would be an easy meal and an easy drag off.
In general, New York's huge, though. Like, that's a
I mean,
bear every 20 miles.
I mean, obviously anything is possible because we don't know if any one of us was sitting here and said this is what happened to him, right? We don't know.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know. The only argument there is again, there would have been sign, right? There would have been some sort of struggle, some sort of light leaves, of torn clothing, of his hat, of his glasses, of his keys, of anything, right? And there would have been something for them to find. And I think it would have made a little bit more noise. But then again, I mean, we don't know. And that's why, that's why it drives me. Now it's bringing this all up again. My wheel's going to be turning now because now that I'm back on my feet, I'm like, boy, I got to get back up there, man.
Yeah.
Well, wait till it's not 105 up there, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we find that every time we bring somebody on to talk about a case that we've looked at and they've looked at, there's always something that pops up where it's like, I need to think about this more. Like, I need to look at that. So I'm not.
Well, that was the
surprised.
thing. That was the thing when I had the epiphany of once I talked to Chuck. Right, I have the full interview is like an hour and a half. Right, so I just gave you 2 or 3 minutes of it. But there's a lot of things on his thought of like Chuck. If I ask him, I'm like, where do you think he is? Tell me exactly where you think he is. And listening to him, and then I sitting up there, you want to have that epiphany, right? You want to have that magic moment where you go, you know what? I never even thought of this. And hopefully, now that I've taken a break from the film for a while to get done with some personal things, who knows? Look at it through, and that's why having people up there, fresh set of eyes, right? A fresh set of brain. It's always, you can't have too much help, right?
Yeah, we'd be happy to come up.
Yeah,
when you
it's
guys
a lot of fun.
go
It's a lot
back
of fun.
there.
Yeah.
100%. Ryan Krellick for $2 says, Killdozer versus Skinwalker, who would win?
Killdozer. Killdozer beats Skinwalker.
It's like
Skinwalker can't even get into the Killdozer.
Killdozer, Wendigo, Skinwalker.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll say this. Skinwalker can wait Marv Heemeyer out of the Killdozer. Skinwalker can't beat the Killdozer.
Yeah, Marv's not coming out, though.
No, and he's armed.
Yeah.
Granted, if you need some white ash, but
Yeah.
no, I'm taking the Killdozer on this one.
Thoughts?
I have to take Killdozer. Yeah.
Yep. Eleanor de Howler Werewolf Queen for $1.99 says, appreciate you three respecting the families with a heart. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It's an important thing, and it was a hard decision to make because as a filmmaker, and I think you guys will agree with me, is you want to get that part of the story because I'm looking at my outline here, going, man, that interview would fit right freaking there, but. It's a decision you make, and it's as a human being, I chose to make it that way, and I don't regret it, and so I thank her for understanding.
Yeah, and true crime and missing persons is it is so real to the people involved, and it is so current that it's one of those things you really got to be careful with the ethics, You know, you have to consider what's going to be best for the people involved and make your decisions based on that.
Yep.
And that's how it happened with us. Is I watched your film. I talked to a couple of my guys. I said, let's go up. We went up 2 weekends in a row. We were up there. We were searching. We're like, wow. Then we're getting into it. We're getting addicted. All these things are hitting on the metal detectors, and everybody's getting excited. But once I came home the week later, and I sat down in front of my computer, and I did some really hard research, and I went to the library up there, and I got all the family records, and I went through all the family tree, and I went to Ancestry and Genealogy and all those websites, and traced the entire family, and to try to figure out what was going on. It became a whole different story for me.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't the glamour of making a creepy, wow, I'm going to solve this mystery, right? The first 48 type of thing, was gone. The shine was off the apple, and now it's a real story with a real victim, right. And that with real family members that you know this destroyed their lives. It sucks.
Yeah. Chad Sovialis or Soviace Solivice. There we go. Got it right that time. For $13.79 says, found your channel from about 5 months ago. Been trying to catch up on everything. Finally caught you guys live. Also, just want to hear Aiden say specificity.
Me?
I'm not sure.
I guess we can both say specificity. We've now both said specificity.
We both specifically have said specificity.
Yes.
There we go.
Specificity.
There we go. I was going to
Yeah,
ask
all
if you
three
wanted
of
to join in there.
I have a buddy that says Philadelphia.
Uh-huh.
Right, Philadelphia. He
Oh,
does a
oh,
TH,
that's wrong.
and it
Interesting.
freaking drives me crazy, dude. He goes, "We're gonna go down to Philadelphia." Oh Jesus,
Ah,
dude,
no.
stop that!
We do call it Philadelphia sometimes.
Occasionally.
Yeah, it's if anybody
Phil-
else calls it that, we'll hit them. But
Filthy Philly.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's our word. You know, we're allowed to say it.
Only the degenerates who live in and around it are allowed to refer to how
Exactly.
degenerate the town actually is.
But just to be quick, thank you, Chad, for watching, and I'm glad you were able to catch us live.
Yeah, thanks.
These are fun shows.
TIE Fighter 4100 for $19.99. Thank you very much. For the last super chat prior to 8 p.m.
Okay.
Says, with this newer info, what is your prediction on what happened, or what's your future look into the case for all of us involved?
I mean, for me, I think you're probably, I think that you're probably right, Brendan, that he is in there, that he's probably somewhere in that area you identified. And the fact that he didn't seek help would lead me to believe he had a medical emergency, since there's no sign of a struggle. That said, I think if he can't be found, I do wonder if there was some sort of foul play involved. I don't know what it would be, but yeah, I think that medical emergency is probably the most likely outcome here, but I also think that he should be found eventually, and if he's not, that's strange to me. Or at least if something about him isn't found, like his rifle.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going to do when we go up in this fall. Is that we have I've solicited a couple of metal detector groups, right? Those groups that get together and look for things, and I'm going to get a big, because surprisingly enough, metal detectors were never used up there.
It doesn't surprise me, honestly, because it's just not the kind of thing that you'd necessarily have on hand.
Right, exactly. But so what we're going to do this fall is we're going to look for the rifle, right? We're going to go up there. We're going to do grid searches for the rifle. So we'll get a bunch of people in lines, and I tell you, the metal detectors pick up everything up there, man. We've gotten little beer tabs, little 22 round bullets. It sucks because you're digging this stuff up, and then we realize that, listen, the rifle's still going to be pretty on top of the ground here. It's not going to be, it's not going to be a Dennis Martin thing where it's 2 feet under the ground, right? It's not that long ago, and rifles tend to. And I asked the coroner. I go, where will this stuff be? Besides the scatter of the bones and stuff like that, the stuff will be scattered. Predators take stuff, porcupines take stuff, everybody takes stuff to eat it. But you look for the rifle, right? The rifle, the keys, something like that will be there. So we were going to do a giant push in certain areas and look for the rifle. And I think that'll be the easiest thing to find, because once you find the rifle, then at least you have an area to look for it.
Yeah, I agree. One last thing that's kind of been on my mind about the whole thing. Sid, based on what was said in the Missing 411 documentary, there were 7 people there. But I've only ever seen 6 names.
What's funny about that is, with all the research that I did, right? I was not interested in the younger hunters, right? I knew who they were. I couldn't find the seventh name either, to tell you the truth. I never asked that question because it was more like I didn't approach it from a nefarious something was wrong, because I spoke to the detectives that interviewed each hunter, and they said, listen, I can tell you that there was nothing. We got everybody's cooperative. There was no sign of any foul play. These guys were, they're locals for all intents and purposes. Yes, they live 3 miles south, but I believe you had Al, Joe, Sid, and Tom. And then you had Rob, and then you had Sid's Jr. Right?
Yeah.
Sid the third, I think it is, and then 2 other guys. I just don't have the names right here, which makes me sound like a bad investigator.
But you're in the same boat we were, where we just could not find the name for that last person. That's the one thing that stuck with me is like, if something weird did happen, did Sid let it slip? Was there another person that the others didn't know about out there? And if so, why? That is the one angle I can see foul play on.
You know what?
But it could also just be that he remembered wrong.
I have to go through my notes because I think there may have been 6. I think there may have been 6 because that gives you 3 pickup trucks, right?
Yep, that is the number.
I have to look at the lease.
That is the number every single other source I found said, and then I think it was specifically Sid. It was definitely in the Politus documentary, but I think it was Sid who said there were 7 people.
Yeah, but Sid was also pushing 80 at that time.
Yeah, and that's the thing was he just misremembering?
I have to go through. I can find the lease, the hunting camp lease, and see who's on that lease. Because the hunting camp, they're all in the hunting camp. I have that stuff somewhere. I have to dig all this stuff out. But it's a good question.
Let me know if you find something.
I will. But I would like to touch on one thing. I think we touched on it before. Is there was a lot of hem and hawing about the FBI, right? As if anybody knows anything about that area, June 6th of that year, 2 guys escaped from Dannemora prison, or the correction, the Clinton County Correctional Facility up north by Plattsburgh, right?
Right.
So during that 3-week hunt, right, which they found him, I think they found him in Franklin County, which was south of where he left.
There was one guy that got shot. One of them got shot.
Yeah, one got shot and killed. The other one got shot and I got it here. It's Richard Matt and David Sweet, right? And Richard Matt got shot and killed, and David Sweet was shot and then taken back to prison. But during that time, the Rangers and the FBI were looking in the Adirondack Park, right? So as a courtesy, and this is in the Chuck Cabral interview, the FBI came by to see if they needed any assets. Do you need any assets? Can we help you with anything?
Yeah.
And since they were there, the FBI, the family was at the fire station when the FBI came by, because that's where they were. The FBI did not go to her house and make a special trip there and say that we didn't find anything. They were just there. They introduced themselves to the family and said, listen, we are trying to help with any assets we can give.
Yeah.
And once they said, listen, we got everything we need. Thank you for your help.
Yeah.
So they did a courtesy stop by, and anybody doesn't want to believe that, I will send you the actual words from Chuck Cabral's mouth, who spoke with the FBI.
Yeah,
so we can put that to bed.
I'm willing to believe you on that one, because it's I dug high and low and could find no reason the FBI could have been involved aside from either that, which is they basically said, all right, we'll go check it out because somebody knew. Well,
you'd have to be naive not to think that one of the largest search and rescues in New York history is going on right down the road, and you're sitting in Albany on your thumbs. You don't think you're going to stop by after you just worked with these guys for 3 weeks, 4 months ago. You're going to make a phone call and you're going to stop by, right? Yeah, you're going to make a field trip out there and say, hey, is there anything you need?
Yeah, somebody could have easily been like, hey, the FBI was out here a few months ago. Let's call and ask, or they could have called and asked. Yeah, exactly.
The FBI actually came. The FBI contacted the Warren County Sheriff's Department, who contacted the DEC.
Interesting.
So they literally said, "Is there anything you need?" And then they came by. They drove by and checked. They did like a courtesy stop.
Yeah.
So it was nothing that because you got to think it's not like the Warren County Sheriff's Department and the DEC have a ton of assets to bear on one area, right? It's a manhunt. I get it, right? But they don't have 5 helicopters and all these search and rescue dogs and stuff. So if you're a law enforcement agency, right, the FBI, you're going to say, hey, do you need help?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, there was maybe like the FBI brought in a mobile communications stand or something. There I feel like there was something that was mentioned in a report maybe, but like that there was a little bit of assistance they gave. But yeah, what I will say is this. The FBI could avoid a lot of rumors if they just said that when I called them.
I tried to get a comment. It's like open, it's an open case, case, right? The same thing with the New York, the New York State Troopers is the same thing. It's a dead end.
Yeah,
so that's why you have to go. That's why I went through the sheriff's department, right, and and right to the DEC, because you can't go through a federal agency, and a state agency is a big pain in the ass. It's the same thing.
But like, that's my point is, as far as the media, the public relations and everything, if you're the FBI and somebody comes to you and says, hey, your agents were here, can you comment on that? It's a lot quicker to say, well, we worked with them over the summer during a manhunt and then decided to offer them some help, than to say, no comment.
Yeah.
No.
Like,
and that's why I was surprised with the DEC, to be honest with you, that they got back to me. And once I got my foot in the door and I proved to them that I wasn't a lunatic, they bent over backwards to help me. I did not expect to get those search maps.
Yeah,
Those search maps were considered an active case, and they didn't want to give them to me. And suddenly, next thing you know, I got the PDFs on my computer. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
Well, they're probably like, oh, cool, this David Politis guy made us look, incompetent or like we were hiding something, and now this guy is trying to rectify the situation. Let's take the opportunity.
Yep.
And I did a full disclaimer right when I walked in the door. I said, listen, I'm not going to ask any stupid questions. We're doing a documentary. This is what it is. It's a shoestring budget. You got 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And honestly, like I said, when I talk to them again this fall, it'll be the same thing. I'll see Chuck. I'll be like, hey, how you doing, bud? Any luck? No, nothing. I text him here and there. And it's just normal people. If he wants somebody to help him find, if you can find this, if I can help him find this and solve this case, that's a load off his back, right? I'm not going to muck up the system, right? I'm not going to try to screw them over.
Exactly.
So there.
And it's a great thing that people like you are doing the work that you are, because it's kind of helping to mend those relationships between media and investigative people, because, running into instances like that where the FBI doesn't want to comment on things. And, even in this case specifically, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the responses that we end up getting when we reach out to people are because they've had to deal with sensationalism for decades, as essentially a systemic element of journalism and reality TV and things like that. So to be able to kind of begin mending the relationships with the public and the media sphere and be like, hey, no, like we are now in a position as creators to not have to sensationalize. The true story can sell itself, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure you guys are being represented properly for the great work you're doing. And I think
that's exactly what this film will be when it's done. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, right. I'm psyched for it to be finished.
Yeah, me
it
as
is.
Well.
And my guys will tell you, I am a stickler for details. I edit. I'm an Adobe Creative Cloud guy. With Premiere Pro and all that stuff, and it takes me forever to get things right because I want it just right. I want to make sure that it tells the story, that it's engaging. I'm not going to rush it just because I wanted it done, last fall. If it takes a couple more months, it takes a couple more months. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Yep.
Trust me, I fully understand where you're coming from.
I'm glad to be able to, after this week, give you more time to edit too.
Yeah, thankfully. One quick thing before we wrap up, because Skippy S gave us a total of $40 to bring this topic up. Audrey Mae Herron went missing, not entirely sure when, but 1 hour south of where Messick went missing, apparently.
Audrey Mae Herron.
Audrey Mae Herron. I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah, neither have I. But yeah, they...
Did he say what year? You
did
looking
not.
It up?
Let's look it up real quick.
Because she's not in the current missing persons thing in New York. Oh, here it is. Audrey Mae, State Police.
Looks like went missing.
Oh, Catskill. That's Catskill.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
Yeah, slightly south.
Yeah.
But yeah. The time frame. What year again was Messick? It was
2008.
2015.
Oh, I'm sorry. 15. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like an 8-year anniversary.
Wait, so Audrey Mae Herron was when?
2002.
So a decent bit earlier.
Yeah, 13 years on there.
And I looked at it. There was, I kind of broadened it. I was like, all right, what about the Adirondacks in general? Is there anything weird? And it's like, yeah, there are some people who went missing, who died while on trail or while camping or something like that. But I could find, they were all too far away and there didn't seem to be enough to connect them to each other. So, the way I'm starting to feel about it, it's like, if there's, multiple disappearances within the same 20 square miles in 5 years, okay, then we're starting to look at something weird. If it's
Have you looked at the amount of search and rescues that they do in the Adirondacks?
Oh, it's crazy.
Have you seen the actual numbers they do each year? It's staggering.
Least, it's hundreds, right?
Hundreds, if not over 1,000 sometime a year. There's almost one a day, at least one a day, the entire this time until after hunting season.
Yeah.
A staggering amount of people go missing up there, right? 99.9 of them are found, right? Or they find themselves. But I couldn't believe when I was going through the numbers how many people. I'm like, oh my God, this can't be right. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, almost all of them are solved, but that's That's the thing is, that I guess that is the one criticism of Politus that has bugged me is the whole, oh, well, statistically, that's actually fewer people than you'd expect to go missing. And it's like, let's narrow things down a bit here and look at the exact circumstances and how many people will go missing who aren't found. And let's talk about that instead. But, even still, Politus has a tendency to make things seem weirder than they are, especially like the Eric Lewis case that we looked at recently. It was just straight up not weird in the way he described it. Nor were any of the other three.
Yeah, the key thing to remember too is how many people go missing under normal circumstances, right? There's no drama, there's no drugs, there's no alcohol, there's no ex-boyfriend, there's no child involved. How many people disappear just kind of poof? That's the thing that's the fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? Because it escapes me the other gentleman that went missing a couple weeks later. The reason they had to pull all those people off right around Thanksgiving was that other gentleman went missing 2 hours south or an hour south, and they lost a lot of the search and rescue people because they had to do that. That was another case where,
So that one.
God, I got to look it up.
That one was odd.
What was his name again?
Fritz Drum. I brought it up in the.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Fritz Drum. Yeah.
I brought it up in the video.
In the revisit?
Yeah,
or the
so
original?
first of all, everybody says they went missing on Thanksgiving. He did not go missing on Thanksgiving.
It was right around there.
He went missing several days earlier, but if I remember correctly, his wife, one of the reports said that his wife said she was at a Thanksgiving, brunch with family and that he hadn't gone, and that when she got back, he was no longer at the house and hadn't taken his keys as anything like that.
Right.
But it wasn't Thanksgiving. And there was, I can't remember the exact details. There was something about it that I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like something about this story is wrong.
He last seen, he was 11/24.
Yeah, it was not Thanksgiving.
Which is what? It's a day before 2 days before Thanksgiving?
I think it was like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So
probably say Thanksgiving.
Well, no, so here's
close.
that I remember what it was. He went missing on
Schulerville, yeah.
Yeah, he went missing on Tuesday. He was not reported missing until Wednesday. Why?
Did
His
nobody?
wife realized he was missing at 2 p.m.
Maybe she just
and then
assumed...
waited until the next morning to report him missing.
Well,
He hadn't taken his keys. He was not answering his phone.
Depending on what the circumstances of their marriage was and also who he was as a person,
True.
she may have had little concern to assume, he might be back tomorrow.
It's possible. It still struck me as a little odd.
That's fair.
That
That's
the
worth the
Thanksgiving, the fact that she said she was at a Thanksgiving meal or a Thanksgiving event on not Thanksgiving, and the fact that he was not reported missing until the next day, both of those struck me as odd. I just don't have enough information to say anything further on it, but that was weird to me.
Worth
And the hard thing about that one too is it was done. He went missing on his own property, right? He went missing on private property. So the good thing, the benefit for the Tom Messick case was you're physically able to get to where he last was. You could, and I have a cross that we're going to actually hang on the tree, which you have to talk to the Department of Interior, right? You got to talk to the Department of Forestry because they own the tree. You can't just nail it to the freaking tree. But you can actually physically get to the spot where he last was, so you could do your investigation. The Fritz Drum one, you're kind of stuck at reading newspapers and reading police reports.
Yeah, which sucks. But
unfortunately.
I did see one come in from Echo Warrior that was for a lot of money.
I was just going to say, so right before we wrap up, he gave us $50 to ask if we could do a Riley Straining update because he hasn't been able to see anyone covering the following of that story at all.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely do it in this format. Yeah, we could do it as part of the podcast, or maybe next time we record a podcast, we can record a little segment on it beforehand where I just kind of read to the camera.
Well, next week we don't have a guest scheduled, so we could.
Yeah, we can probably do it next week. I don't think there's enough there to do a full video on it, and we're probably not hitting a smiley face killer thing for a little while at this point. But yeah, I can give an update on what the autopsy report found and how things have changed a little bit. I still also, just to be clear, we made the Morgan and Morgan deal in January. That was scheduled in January. We had no idea his family was going to retain Morgan and Morgan, and they didn't retain Morgan and Morgan until after the video came out. For all I know, that's why they retained Morgan and Morgan. So whoever was yelling at me in the comments section for not disclosing it, I can't have possibly disclosed something I didn't know was going to happen.
So wait, hang on. For those of
How
us
do you
who,
really feel, Eden? Tell us.
wait. So for those of us who aren't entirely sure what you're talking about, let me assume real quick here. Are you telling me that we had an ad for Morgan and Morgan in that video, and that Riley Strain's family retained Morgan and Morgan for the case, and now people are angry at us somehow for that?
There were a few people in the comments who didn't see the video until June, who were upset with me because I did not mention that Riley Strain's family had retained Morgan and Morgan to represent them. They retained Morgan and Morgan on May 31st, or at least that's when the news hit. We did the video. The video came out the last week of March, and we scheduled Morgan and Morgan for that ad slot before Riley Strain went missing.
I just find it fascinating that they ended up using Morgan and Morgan, and that we had an ad for them.
It
For
was
that video.
It's a little
Coincidence,
weird.
man.
Yeah.
It's a weird coincidence.
It's a wild coincidence.
It is America's largest law firm.
Yeah,
They're
that does make
huge.
sense.
They're
yeah.
huge.
Their marketing team is good, man. Like they got signs in Philly that in Philly we have a slang term that just kind of means a general object. You can use it for anything. It's John. It's like thing. That John, hand me that John. It depends on what it's contextual. What I mean.
Yeah.
He had a billboard up that said, "I'm John Morgan."
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that's I can definitely do something about Riley Strain's. I mean, you paid for me to do it essentially, so
Yeah.
yeah, so I can do that. Are there any other questions that seem super relevant, or can we enforce our deadline?
Just generally, Skippy was saying that Audrey Mae Herron, her car and body were never found, vanished after leaving work.
All right.
Just as another element to look into.
There's another one we were going to look at. I think it was Angela Marie Hammond. Was I think a similar, like was kidnapped.
Yep. And then really the last one, other than K Android complimenting us at being so good at research, big thank you there, was Wyatt Dye saying, wondering if we had any thoughts about Tom falling into a hole or crevice and then being covered by dirt. And I know we didn't really touch on the
I completely
sawdust pile
forgot to ask
element.
about this one thing though.
Yeah.
Brendan, did you come across the sound Sid heard?
No, and that was the reason that we did that audio test up there. Was and I asked Cabral, and he says he doesn't remember anybody saying anything about that sound.
Okay.
I obviously didn't talk to Sid, but I there was a lot of speculation about that. I don't know what the hell that was. We slammed doors. We did all sorts of tests up there to see if we could hear things. And the sound he said, he said he didn't know what it was. Right?
Yeah,
he
the
said he
closest
didn't
he
know
could get
what
was
it
that
was.
I think his son said a car door
it could have
slam.
been tinnitus. It could have been tinnitus for all you know. Sometimes you get that ting in your ear. I don't know because there's if you go up there are no structures. I believe you're talking about a crevice. In my heart of hearts, maybe he tripped over a rock, fell into a crevice, and fell under a deadfall log, something like that, right? He has to be somewhere like that. But there's nothing up there. There's nothing metallic up there. There's no mines. There's no shafts. Nothing up there like that. So I don't know what that was.
All right, because that is one loose end I was curious about. But maybe if we head up there with you this fall, then we can look around and see if there's anything we can think of.
Oh, that'd be great.
I thought of tinnitus where your ears ring. Right?
Yeah.
You get that thing. I thought maybe if he because he was an older gentleman and he had something like that happen. That's the only thing that really trying to speculate. But when you guys get up there, you'll see what I'm talking about, man. It's there's not a lot going on up there. There's a lot going on up there, but there's a lot And we sat up there. We went out at midnight, dude. We went up there. We sat overnight. It's hard. I was so exhausted because we would shoot the film all day and look for him all day, and then we would go out there and sit out there at night all night. So we're getting like 2 hours sleep for 4 days. It's like I'm going cuckoo. And I tell you, you could hear lake loons were terrifying up there, right? You get those loons that scream in the middle of the night. They sound amazing, but that's the only thing that makes noise up there at night.
Yeah.
And during the day, it's nothing up there. I don't know. I don't know.
Weird. Well, Brendan, thank you so much for coming on and for having a conversation. I'm psyched to see what you come up with. What's the best channel for people to follow so that they're
well
up to date
right
when that
now I
comes
am
out?
currently on hiatus from creating content because I was doing This Week in Bigfoot for a year, and I decided to take a break. If you go to the CARC Universal, which stands for Catskill Appalachian Research Collective Universal, CARC Universal is the YouTube channel. And there's all the content that I've done so far is on there. It is, as you'll see, very Bigfoot heavy. That's the reason I kind of left the channel and the group, is to get back out on my own and get back to the roots of making good documentary films.
Sure.
And this will be the Taken one. It's half there or 80% there, and I want to finish it. We'll put a bow on it and get it out.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
we will be in touch with you, and we'll make sure to let everybody know when it releases.
Yeah, there's also Facebook, which is the Catskill Appalachian Research Collective, and CARC Universal TikTok. So
perfect,
fantastic.
All right, well, thank you very much.
I had
Brendan.
a blast, you guys, man. I really did. It was a lot of fun.
I was great having you on.
Time.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
No problem. But
all right.